Have you ever wondered why so many of the founders of modern science were actually leaders in the Christian faith? Or ever asked yourself, what is life? Like, what is life? Then watch closely as you're about to see the concluding statements in a debate that happened between Richard Dawkins and John Lennox.
Has science buried God? I think not. Science arose in the 16th and 17th centuries, a meteoric rise that historians of science have looked at and come to the conclusion that one of the main motors driving the rise of science was faith in God. So far from belief in God being a science stopper, it was the thing that caused science to rise in the first place, understandably so, because people had a basis for believing that the universe was rationally accessible, and so they could do their science, which is apparently one of the reasons given by Needham, the famous sinologist in Oxford, when he looked at China and asked the question, why did science not develop in this way in China? And in the end, although he was a Marxist, he came to the conclusion that it was because of the Christian background. So I'm not ashamed of being both a scientist and a Christian. And I suppose that the major argument that points, doesn't prove, but points towards God is that this universe is a universe in which science can be done. The fact that the laws are there. Richard honestly says he doesn't know where they come from. They come from the logos, the mind that is behind this universe, that has created it by his power and for his glory. And therefore doing science, like Galileo and Kepler suggested, doing mathematics, is to discover the secrets of the universe in the language in which God has written them. The other reason why I reject atheism as an explanation is it doesn't even, to my mind, begin to rise to account for the rationality which lies behind science. Also, I think that the Christian faith, which I unashamedly espouse, is not anti-scientific. And I would plead for the same attention to be paid to history as is paid to science itself. I find very unconvincing arguments that trip very lightly over things that historians do accept, which mean that we should take the scholarship that has to do with the existence and the resurrection of Christ very seriously indeed. The other big area, which we didn't discuss in great detail tonight, is that if science has buried God, it seems to me there's something else that lies before us, and that is, where are we going to get our morality from? Because Richard has written in one of his books that the universe is just like we'd expect to find it if at bottom there's no good, there's no evil, there's no justice. DNA just is, and we dance to its music. That seems to me to be a frightfully deterministic universe. And it troubles me to this extent, because it seems to me that on the one hand, the new atheists, of which Richard is a leader in the world, are trying in a way to hold on to the values that were given to them by Christianity, actually. And I would like to emphasize that, because in many of these books, nothing good is said about religion. But Jürgen Habermas, who's not a Christian, of course, 30 seconds, recently said that the foundations of our legal system and our education and our morality in Europe are based on Christianity. Everything else is postmodern chatter. What worries me is this, that can you really retain these good moral values and espouse atheism? Hard atheists like Nietzsche and Camus would say you can't. Eventually it will lead to madness. And some people are suggesting that that is actually what's going to happen. And I have a question for Richard Dawkins. Is his world the world of Peter Singer? where in the end moral values get so eroded by a naturalistic framework that Peter Singer can say a newborn baby is of no more value than a pig or a dog or a chimpanzee. Is that the world to which the new atheism is leading us?
Peter Singer is one of the most moral people I know, and when he says something like that, it is based upon a very rigorous moral philosophic reasoning. He's interested in suffering, and his point is there that a newborn baby, or certainly a human fetus, may be less capable of suffering than, say, a full-grown pig. That seems to me to be an entirely rational point of view, at least an entirely defensible point of view. However, it was tossed in at the last minute, and I don't want to take all my time dealing with that. John, you quoted me as saying the universe has at bottom no good, no evil, and you said it has exactly the properties we'd expect if there was nothing there. You said that sounds horribly deterministic. Well, another way of putting that would be to say that the universe is horribly rational, horribly intelligible. And one of the main points you've been making is precisely that we live in an intelligible universe, and that's one of the things that we need to explain, and you think it needs a God in order to explain it. What I would like to know is, what would an unintelligible universe look like? How could any creature live as we live? How could any creature have evolved and survived in a universe that didn't have that kind of mathematical intelligibility? It's the anthropic principle again. Just as we could only be living in a universe that has stars, because you need stars to make molecules, so we could only have survived in a universe where there is rationality. I cannot conceive of what an irrational, unlawful universe would look like. Now, science doesn't know everything. So it's one of the glories of science that we know what we don't know, and we work on what we don't know, try to shrink what we don't know. It's hard work. We don't cop out by saying, oh, well, if you come to a difficult problem, magic must have done it, or God must have done it. No, we don't say that. We say, right, that's a problem to be solved. It may not be solved this century, it may be solved in the following century, or the one after that. But we don't just lie down and give up and say, oh, well, it must be magic because we don't yet understand it. I would hold up Darwin as a model for the whole of science, because before Darwin came along, the whole of life, the complexity of life, the beauty of life, the elegance of life, the apparent design of life looked like magic. And everybody thought it was magic. Everybody thought that God did it. It's so complicated, it's so elegant. Now, that was the really big problem. That was a far bigger problem than the problem of the origin of life, than the problem of the origin of the cosmos. Darwin solved that problem. All scientists now know that. Darwin solved that problem, and in so doing, he provided us with a sort of parable that don't even think about giving up, because if ever there was a time to have given up, it was in the case of biology, because biology really was a difficult problem, a hard problem. Darwin solved it. Now we have one or two other problems remaining, like the origin of life, like the origin of the cosmos, the origin of the laws of physics. No doubt that there are physicists here who can point to yet other ones. Darwin provides us with a lesson. It says, don't give up, because if Darwin could solve it for the really difficult problem, which was life, then we have every hope that science will solve it for the other problems in the end. And even if it doesn't, even if science doesn't solve all problems ever, that is still no grounds for saying, oh, well, magic did it.
So there's two different claims that were made in this conclusion. John Lennox is saying that actually the Christian faith gave rise to the scientific revolution in the 16th and 17th century. He's saying this is because, well, the people themselves said that because of their faith, they believed that there would be order, rationality, and this goodness to search and to look for and to be in awe of it, knowing that there's even deeper implications and meanings. But Richard Dawkins is saying, he made a statement and just said that, oh, if there's an unknown phenomenon, well, faith will cause you to say, it's just magic, it's just God. So I guess really the way to test this is to do like John Lennox said. Let's look at the historians and see who were the founders of modern science and see what they have to say about this. And so I've actually studied this a little bit. So Isaac Newton, Kepler, and Boyle. You may remember Boyle, and you might have learned Boyle's law in chemistry in high school. And these are all amazing Christians, amazing scientists. And actually lately I've been reading a commentary on Daniel written by Isaac Newton that's amazing. So it would seem that the founders of modern science, they did have a real deep faith in God. So, I mean, I guess everyone can just search that out historically and see if Christianity is really people just looking at unknown phenomena and saying, oh, it's just magic, it's God, I'm going to give up and not search it out. Or see that actually the founders of the principles of the scientific method of these processes, that they had faith in God, and in their own works they say that that's what led them to do this work. And it's the same thing today. Even Mendel and people that did genetics, they had faith in God, and they would attribute it. It wasn't just a God that gaps, like, oh, I don't know, it must be magic. They actually attribute their search of science and reasoning to their belief in God and in acts of worship, just like monks did for a long time. So that's the first claim, to really seek and to see who is correct in this. You know, what's the basis for both of these arguments? Is it based in, hey, this is the historical fact, Christians did this, they just said it was magic and they didn't ever search for truth? Or is it historical fact that actually believing in a rational God that created a rational universe gives us a basis to study and to seek on that basis of constants, rationality, and logic? And so one thing that biology does is studying actually like the physical life, cells and all these things, the study of life. But the way they've done it, we haven't got like a real good definition. Like a working definition, they could say chemical compounds that do such and such things. But it's not really a definition or defining of what life is. And a way that Plato went about this was, whenever you're talking about something, you know, let's have knowledge of it and talk about the art of that thing, everything we know about it, to help actually define what that thing is. And so that's actually a technique that Plato would do. And he did this in Alcibiades, a book that he wrote, and it was a way of really saying that there's more than the human. That basically your hand is something that you have. It's almost like a tool, you know, but it's not actually you, because what something has is not what something is. So it's a really cool way of reasoning and thinking, and he did it through talking about art forms, or like what he would call art or knowledge or an excellence of knowing how one thing works, like an excellence of cooking, a chef. You know, well, who's the one that knows the best chef? Like, I can cook, you know, so I do have, so you can call me a cook if I worked at a restaurant. But then you'd say, well, Gordon Ramsay, he would know better than me about cooking. There's a certain excellence of cooking that he's got. So he would know when it's best to cook, when it's best not to cook. And so you start looking at let's just call like the perfect way of doing it. The best possible way of doing one thing is the art of cooking, which even is beyond Gordon Ramsay. It's like the art form, the best way of doing that. And when you look at that through like that being the knowledge of something, then you can start applying that to what a person is. What is the knowledge? What is the best possible way to be a person? What is the best possible way to be a man? What is the knowledge, the best possible thing? And these are instructions that we actually get in the Bible. It says that it was this best blueprint, that God created us in his image. And then there was corruption that came in the world through sin. And so it's off. But Jesus came to give us life and to restore us to that image. And this is a process. And when he comes back, he's going to do that. But it's a really beautiful way of looking at what something actually is and seeing that biology, the definition, I mean, I don't know if it's for everyone to decide if that's satisfactory, to say that life is something that reproduces, something that does this and this and this, just talking about what it does instead of actually what it is. And so if that's a good definition, just to say, hey, what am I? I am something with eyes. I am something with feet. You know, I am something that laughs. I'm something that, just talking about things that I do, it's not actually saying like what I am. And so it's not satisfactory. I don't think that Dawkins has solved anything, or Darwin has solved anything if they can't actually tell us what it is. They're studying life, but it doesn't even tell us what life is. And they say there's debate amongst them of this topic. And so I think that would make it clear, but it's a really good conclusion. Good to see them do all that. It's a good debate. And I just hope everyone can enjoy that and to get something from it. But I would say, I mean, if anyone wants to, just check the claims. I feel like that's the easiest thing to do. Check claims. Go and see, okay, the people who gave rise to the scientific revolution, what did they believe? Did they actually believe in God? Okay, but what does that mean for them to believe in God? Were they passionate about Jesus? Were they passionate about God? Were they like spurred on by God to search out these scientific discoveries and scientific methods, which do belong to this rationality? And Dawkins said he couldn't imagine a universe that wasn't rational, like saying that he's just trying to basically walk across something that he can't. He's trying to get rid of it. Because in a recent debate with John Lennox and Dr. Atkins said that he's an atheist. He said that he believes the universe came about through ignorance, indolence, and anarchy. And that's a big atheistic point of view, that everything came from chaos. Everything came from anarchy and indolence. And so I don't see how that follows. See, that's the mindset. If you have the mindset that everything came from anarchy, then why is it bad for morally bad things to happen, or for things to be destroyed, or for evil to take place, or, you know, evil not just in a morality sense to a person, but evil like just things being destroyed? You know, it doesn't give you the scientific reasoning and method of looking at something rationally, because it came from anarchy. If they believe it came from chaos, then that's the basics, that's the foundation. But if you believe everything came from God, who founded the world with wisdom, is what the Bible said. That with wisdom was with him at the very beginning, and he founded everything through wisdom. And so if we believe that he had this rationality, this wisdom, then we will look at everything and see, wow, God, yeah, you made numbers work, math works, logic works. And we'll see the way that it's in everything. The heavens will declare the glory of God. Psalm 19. And so I just would say that everybody, it'd be cool if you'd go and search this out and look and actually read some of their books. Right now, I'm actually, because I'm searching this too, I'm reading a commentary or a work that Isaac Newton did about Daniel and the book of Revelation and prophecy, how he's a strong believer in the whole Bible, and about the coming of Jesus and the end times governments being set up. He was very serious about it, made cool predictions. He made really amazing predictions that were really close too. It's like, wow, that's incredible to see that. So I'll just encourage everyone to search these things out and to do everything in grace and love to everyone around you, because we are seeking for the truth. If that's the discussion we're having about rationality, reason, let's talk about those things. But let's not give up and just call someone a name. You know, that's not going to do any good. So don't give up, but actually search these things out. Keep it in that realm. Don't keep it in the realm of popularity, rhetoric, fame, sophistry. Let's talk about reason, rationality, and faith. God bless you guys.